Hey, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. This time, I think this is an important card discussion to have, especially for players that maybe don't know how to quite delve deeper into the layer of like card theory or like maybe card design, things like that. I want to compare Foreseeing Hit to Dark Duo Dabura. So on the surface, they're both very similar cards. So we have Foreseeing Hit, which is a 4-drop 20k, and we have Dark Duo Dabura, 4-drop 20k. If you guys do already know what they do, they both snipe cards out of your opponent's hands. But they do that in very different methodical ways, and I think it's important to kind of overview why you would play Dabura in one deck, why you play Hit in another deck, and maybe why you play Hit in the same deck, Hit and Dabura in the same deck. And there's reasons for all three of those. Before we get started with that, I want to let you guys know the Jackie Chun leader is just there because I think he looks cool. So just so you know that. And I also want to let you guys know that if you like Dragon Ball Super content, whether it's deck profiles, whether it's card discussions, whether it's a deck dissection where you guys can submit your own decks and get them edited, whether it's a strategy series where we give you guys some tips and pointers on how to play the game, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button, subscribing to Crossworld TCG. It would really mean the world to me, guys. It'd be awesome. So without further ado, we'll get right into this. So kind of a quick preface, probably the main reason you'd play both these cards in one deck is if you're playing a Chain Zeno control variant, right? So we saw actually a list from ARG Atlanta that was playing 4 Hit, 3 Dabura, and there's probably a reason that I'll touch upon when I start breaking down why he'd play each card. But he played 4 Hit, 3 Dabura, most likely because Hit gives him that hand knowledge and because of the double strike. So I'll get more into why that's relevant later. But in a deck like Chain Zeno Control, where you're playing a big red curve and you want to just start ripping your opponent's hand apart after you Chain Zeno them, playing some combination of Hits and Daburas, probably 4 Hits and 2 to 3 Daburas is probably a good call. But now I'm going to start breaking apart the reasons why you might play different ones in different decks. So we're going to start with Dabura, why you'd play Dabura over Hit. So one of the main factors you'd play Dabura over Hit is if Dabura is not the top of your curve. Well, what that usually means is if Dabura is not the top of your curve, you're not relying on Dabura to be your finisher. Because Hit does have that beefy 20k double strike on top of just Dabura only having a 20k single strike. Hit is a much better finisher because he can threaten lethal at 2 life. Dabura also puts himself in a really risky situation when he's in rest mode. So if you attack with Dabura and put him in rest mode, you put him in harm's way of him getting possibly attacked into and killed, maybe by someone like Jackie Chun where you can't combo to protect it, and then your opponent can get the 2 cards that you snipe back from their hand. So that's what Dabura does is when it leaves the field, your opponent will get those cards back that it sniped. So putting it in rest mode to attack with it is pretty risky. It's much less of a good finisher than Foreseeing Hit is. A good example of a deck that Dark Duo Dabura is good in, that it's not reliant as a finisher, is actually Announcer. So your curve in Announcer is 3 Goku Oob, 4 Dark Duo Dabura, which will start to rip your opponent's hand apart, make it less likely for them to be able to defend against your turn 5 play, which is your Goku into Vegeta triple strikers. So that's a good example of when Dark Duo Dabura is not exactly going to be your finisher, but more of just like a mid-game play that starts to diminish your opponent's resources. So that's one main reason you want to play Dabura over Hit. Another thing to note is that you can potentially give Dabura a barrier, making that option of putting it in rest mode a little less dangerous, also making it immune to like things like Mass Sand or Dimensional Vanisher Fu. But you have to play a really bad card, which is the 3-drop Bobbity from the World Martial Arts Tournament, which is not really worth it. It's a 3-drop that only has 5k power. The only real thing it does is give Dabura a barrier. It's kind of nifty how it can restand one of your red battle cards if your leader's red, but if it was a 2-drop, it'd be way better. But the fact that it's 3-drop, it's super awkward to fit into a curve. So not super worth, but it is definitely worth mentioning. So to go along with that, it's a bit more of a permanent hand control. So as long as Dabura remains on the field, those cards that your opponent lost are gone. Foreseeing Hit, they get them back at the end of the turn. So it's less permanent of a hand hit. With that being said, it is a random hand hit. So it's a little bit less controlling than Hit in terms of you don't get to see your opponent's entire hand. You don't get to rip 2 specific battle cards out. But an added benefit of Dabura is that it can actually hit extra cards, which Hit can't. Sometimes you drop your Foreseeing Hit and you see some number of negates that are extra cards and you can't hit them out of their hand because Hit doesn't allow you to do that. And then Hit is basically ineffective as a finisher at that point because you just know they're going to negate your Hit swing. You make them waste cards in the process, but if they have the stuff to kill you on the next turn, it's going to be a pretty bad predicament for you. So Dabura, while it is random, can hit extra cards, which is another added benefit of playing Dabura. Now we'll move on to some key reasons why you'd play Hit. So like we mentioned before, it is like a much better finisher than Dabura is. You don't really want to be putting your Daburas in rest mode, but your Hits you don't really care if you put them in rest mode because even whether Hit leaves the field or not, your opponent's getting those cards back. So It doesn't really matter if you put Hit in danger as long as you're swinging a threatening double strike. That's mostly what matters with Hit. Another added benefit is Hit is a much better play if you know your opponent's playing spot removal. So if you're playing in something like veggies, or you're playing in something, I don't know, like swaps that have some spot removal in them, or anything that has spot removal at all, you can play Hit into that and disrupt their plays. You don't have to worry about playing Dabura into that. A lot of times, if you're playing against a spot removal deck, like something that plays Kale or something that plays Mass Hand, something like that, a lot of times you'll just charge Daburas. They won't really be very useful, and they're going to basically be a dead card because you're never going to summon them, because they're going to be very, very weak to spot removal, very, very prone to your opponent just removing them from the field and them getting their cards back. Hit, you don't have to worry about that problem. You just slap it down, and whether it leaves the field or not, like I mentioned before, your opponent still gets hit by the effect of Hit, and then they will get those cards back. But even though they get those cards back, I keep mentioning that like it's a really negative thing, but the best thing about playing Hit, maybe second best to it being a better finisher than Dabura, probably better actually, is the fact that you get that hand knowledge on your opponent. When you play Foreseeing Hit, your opponent is forced to show you their entire hand of cards. And that is such a powerful effect in any card game, to see what your opponent's playing with. Like, think about it. You constantly sit across from your opponent, like, wondering how many cards they have in hand, what they have in hand, how they're going to stop your plays, how many negates they have, how many super combos they have, how much combo power they have. It can get really, really frustrating and really, really thought-provoking. So with Hit, when you slap it down, you see their entire hand, you get perfect knowledge of what they get to do with their next turn, minus what they draw for turn or any other draws they might get. But you have a pretty good idea between what's in their discard, what's in their warp, what's in their charge, and what's in their hand, and what's on their battlefield. You have a really, really good idea of what they can do for their next turn, and you have perfect knowledge of how they can defend your life. They're not getting new cards unless they have super combos or like Unbreakable Spirit Gokus. So Foreseeing Hit is probably the best for that reason, just that perfect hand knowledge, and hitting combo pieces out of your opponent's hand as well. The fact that you can like see your opponent has Chain Zeno and then you can just smack it out of their hand is really, really strong. I actually did that at ARG Philly when it was Blue-Red SS3 deck the format. I hit Chain Tag Zeno out of my opponent's hand 3 times, and then because I dropped 3 hits in a row. And then when I couldn't resolve Hit anymore because I just couldn't draw the 4th hit, he Chain Zeno'd me, which, you know, it happens, but that was actually just really insane. So another key reason why you play Hit over Dabura. Overall, I'm gonna say Foreseeing Hit is the better card in a vacuum because of that hand knowledge and because of its ability as a finisher. But I really, really like Dark Duo Dabura as a deck in decks that don't require it to be the finisher. Like I said, in Announcer, we have the budget Pan deck. If you guys haven't checked that out yet, go check that out. It's only a $30 deck that plays this card, Dark Duo Dabura. You don't need $20 Foreseeing Hits. You can just play Dabura, and then your 5-drop curve is your finishing curve, and the deck costs $30. And it plays Chain Zeno, so it's really, really busted. So check that out for sure. Another thing I feel is noteworthy to mention, one of the biggest kind of questions that follow Dabura is what happens in the result of a Chain Zeno. So Dark Duo Dabura reads that when it leaves the field, your opponent will get the cards back to hand that you hit with Dabura. But when you Chain Zeno away a Dabura, when Zeno sends Dabura back to the deck and negates its effects, the cards that were banished off Dabura do not go back to the owner's hand. That's very, very important to know, guys. Those cards are permanently warped. They're gone for the remainder of the game unless something gets them back from warp. But Dark Duo Dabura will not get those cards back from warp for you. So guys, with all those points being noted, I just wanted to give you a quick video on how you guys could decide whether to play Dabura versus playing Hit. I hope this video was informational, helpful to you guys. If it was, definitely consider liking this video and subscribing. That would be dope. Check out our Discord server down in the description below. We're just talking about everything Dragon Ball Super related, whether you want help on your decks, you want just talk to a community member, you want to playtest with any of us, with me, or with anyone else associated with Crossword TCG, or anyone else that's just lingering on the channel. It's really, really active and really, really hype. Check that out. Alright guys, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Joey. This is Crossword TCG. Hashtag Shyamalan loves Foreseeing Hit and Dabura because they're both broken. And I'll see you next time.